Good afternoon, welcome to Rundlii Gaming. We're going to be doing a video. This one will be on Tash Kalar, which was made by Czech Games Editions. And with this, you are pretty much playing like summoners or casters in an arena, and you're trying to defeat your opposing player. And so you're going to get a couple things at the start of the game. First, you're going to choose which faction you want. Some of them do play a little bit differently, but for the most part, a lot of the mechanics are the same. They just have a little bit different as far as how their playstyle goes. The red and blue are actually the same exact deck. The only difference is color. So if you want to play a little bit more balanced of a game, these two are going to have the exact same deck, which can be really good for that. Then you also have the forest people. This has more to do with like kind of like growth related stuff. So you have like Sylvan Queens, you have Centaur Chieftains, you have Sylvan Princess, etc. So there's different things that are more related to like forest type stuff. And then the like beige color deck here, this is gonna have like your war summoners, you're gonna have wolves, ritual master. It's more of like a barbarian tribe sort of thing. And then these two seem more like, you know, an empire or like city. So you have like knights and things of that sort. So when you choose your deck, in this particular case, for example purposes, we're going to use the red and blue deck, just because they're fairly balanced as far as that goes. You will then also pick the types of tokens you have, because you'll have the 4 different types of tokens, depending on which one you choose. So you have like your red tokens here, your blue tokens, your beige, and your green. We're going to remove those from the game as well. And so you're going to have a pretty big stack here as far as the tokens go. Depending on what kind of game you're playing on this one, you will end up taking one of these boards. You have like your red and blue, and then one of these actually flip over to a green. So if you were playing like a 4-player, you can give each of these boards to someone. So each player is going to take a board according to whatever color they are, unless you're playing because there's a couple different variants as well. So since we're going to be doing the basic one, which is playing with team goals, we'll go ahead and drop these over here. So each player is going to take one. So in this case, I'm going to play the red player because I have tokens over here. And then at that point, we also have our blue player, which will be playing on the other side there. We'll go ahead and shuffle each of these. And then each player is going to get their particular deck and then their particular tokens. And then you're going to have a deck that you kind of share, which is kind of a slightly different back on it. This is supposed to be like your really powerful creatures. These will have more to do with things like earth elementals, titans, fire elementals, fire dragons. So they're really big spells that you can cast. They're actually quite a bit more powerful as well, but they do take a little bit more effort in order to actually summon them. You have to kind of plan a little bit more accordingly for that. And then these ones, these are going to be flare cards. The flare cards are designed kind of more of as a like catch-up mechanic. So usually if you're doing a little bit worse than the other player on the board itself, you can use these flares as long as you are able to use it in that particular thing. In most cases, if you're able to use a flare card, you should always use it. And we'll just set that aside too. These last ones here, these are goal cards. This is if you're playing like a high form, which is one of the primary ways that you play the game. In high form, you're trying to achieve specific goals, and as long as you're completing those goals, you'll get victory points. So we'll go ahead and drop these over here. And then otherwise you can hand these boards to different people, so each person can have the same color. Or if one likes it green, you can do green and white, whatever. But these are mostly just to show how many points you currently have. A lot of times you don't really necessarily need this board, because the only way that you get points anyway is through the cards that you get here. And a lot of times I just keep those out in front of me, and that'll actually help annotate that for you. But let's go ahead and just toss those aside for now. Now, at the start of the game, each person is going to draw 3 from their primary deck. So your red or blue deck, depending on what color you were. You're going to get 2 of these really powerful ones. So we'll give 2. Then you're always going to have the 1 flare card. So the form of it is 3, 2, 1. So you have 3 base cards, 2 of the special cards, and then 1 flare. This player is also going to do the same thing. 3 cards, 2 cards, 1 card. Now, normally you'll not actually reveal these, but for the sake of explaining, we're going to go ahead and actually have these revealed. Alright, so this is the starting hand that you're going to have. Now, to kind of go over a little more information on these tokens as well, because we'll just go into that a little bit as well. The small circular ones are going to either have level 1, which is a single sword, or level 2, which is a double sword. So you can flip it over if they get upgraded or if they get downgraded. But you're going to have several of those. And then you're going to also have these slightly bigger tokens, which has like a cross swords and like a heroic type helmet above it. And this is level 3. This is not double back. There's just 3 of those in each of these stacks though. So you can only get up to 3 of those on a board throughout the game. So those are your 3 different types of things you can have on the board here. And then, so each of those players will have one of those. At this point we can pretty much start with whichever player wanted to start. And then we also have our goals, because just killing stuff, unless you're playing Deathmatch, doesn't actually matter. Your goal itself is to actually achieve these particular goals here. And then lastly, you have an up-and-coming one. So these are the different things you're trying to achieve throughout this game here. And also to mention too, the board itself, you have 2 different sides, even though for the most part they're identical. You'll see in the center here, it's not color-coded. It's not like shaded a little bit. If you're playing on this side, it's primarily for Deathmatch, though you could just as easily play this side on Deathmatch as well. It doesn't really matter as much. The only reason that this part is shaded is for specific goals. Like in the case of this card here, even though it's not our current goal, it's one of our future ones. It wants you to have at least 5 pieces in the center here, and 2 of which have to be upgraded. If you do that, you would be able to take this card to get a victory point for it. And some of these are worth a little bit more depending on how difficult a particular task is. For example, controlling 2 green squares, one of which has to have a legendary piece, so level 3 on it, and the other one has to have a level 2 on it. So it's a little bit more difficult than just putting 5 pieces in the center, because you basically have to upgrade pieces in order to get into the center. And to these green pieces here, you have to upgrade pieces or move them over there once you've upgraded them. It tends to be a little bit more difficult than some of the other tasks that are in the game. So, at this point, we have our hand itself, and then we're pretty much ready to go. The first player only can do 1 action at the start of the game, but then it goes to 2 actions every round. So normally your turn will consist of 2 actions. You can either lay down pieces, so let's say if I drop a piece there, that would be my 1 action. As the first player, that's the only thing you can do. Then like this player here could then drop 2 of these if they chose. Let's say if they were wanting to build into this. Maybe they're aiming for a specific type of card here. And this is going to keep going back and forth. And the different types of actions you have is you can play one of these level 1 pieces, and you can put it anywhere you want on the board. Another thing you can do is use one of your cards. So if you feel that you have the requirements needed in order to finish one of these, you can then do that effect as well. And we'll kind of go over some more on that. Let's say right now we have this messenger. It will show you that you need 2 pieces that are diagonal, because it'll show here in the center. In this case, I have the two pieces here that are diagonal of each other, and then there's one box that is that has a little bit more white around it, annotating where the piece will go for this particular messenger. So if I were to summon this messenger, I need 2 pieces that are diagonal from each other to form this messenger. Now I can put it down this way, I can flip it, I can mirror it, however I want to do this. So I could drop him here, I could drop it here, as long as it's at the end of one of those 2 pieces. So in this case, it does show that this piece is a level 1, which it'll show you up in the corner if it's a level 1, level 2, and in the case of like the big cards, it'll show a level 3 up here. Whereas this one here is a level 2. So level 1, 2, 3, depending on the swords that you see at the top here. And what that means is that if I played this card, the thing that is going to go onto the white square that's highlighted is going to be a level 1 piece. So let's say if I were to do this there, because of the messenger. He will also have some additional text on it, and it says you may choose one of your non-legendary pieces and a direction. That piece may do any number of standard moves in one direction. So I can then choose any one of my pieces that I currently have on the board. It does not actually have to be the messenger, it could be any one on the board. And they can move any number of spaces in one single direction. So let's say if I were to take this piece, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that'd be fine. Or 6, or 3, wherever you want to stop at. And then once you've used this card, you'll go ahead and put it in your discard pile. And then pretty much at this point you'll continue on playing as well. At the end of each hand, you're going to actually replenish your hand. So let's say if you use one of your legendary cards here, you're going to get a new legendary card. If you use like one of your messenger, for example, you will get another black card to replace that card that you used as well. So that is how to do your basic summonings. Now, a thing to always remember is that the requirements for these cards are what you need as the minimum for those things. So let's say, as an example, this says I need at least a level 1, a level 1. So I need 2 that are diagonal from each other. On the card itself, it's going to show that they're both level 1. But it doesn't actually matter as long as you have at least a minimum of level 1. So in this case I have a level 2 and a level 1, so I can still cast off it just fine. And the reason why that may come up is that with like the Bone Catapult, which is one of your legendary people, you need a level 2, and a level 2 at the bottom. So effectively you need something like that in order to cast this. So these all have to be level 2, and this has to be at least a level 1. And what that would do is throw the level 3 in the center here. So for like a lot of these types of cards, you do have to meet at least a minimum requirement on the card itself. Another thing to mention as well is that sometimes your opponent is actually going to have pieces that are sometimes in the way of your own thing. So let's say blue had a piece there. Now for this assassin, I need 3 pieces that are diagonal, and then I can then summon, actually let's go ahead and move this a little bit. So I need 3 pieces that are diagonal of each other. So I have the requirement that I need in order to summon the assassin. Now it can then bring something in at the center here, but 2 spaces away. So that you can either go here or here. But as you can see, the opponent already has a piece here. I can still drop this level 2 piece because this is going to come in as a level 2, because in the top right corner, the top corner here, it shows that my piece is going to come in as level 2. As long as I'm at the same level or higher than this piece that I'm falling on, I will destroy that piece if I do so. Let's say, however, that piece was a level 3. I'm trying to summon a level 2 on top of it. My level 2 won't actually be able to be summoned there because the level 3 blocks it from doing so. So you cannot summon on top of a creature that's bigger than yours. However, you can summon at an equal level or lower to your own piece. Well, let's say that level 1 was there, and I were to summon on top of it, I would then destroy it and replace it. You can also destroy your own pieces. So let's say if I had a level 1 there, I could still summon the level 2, which would basically put a level 2 on it. Though normally what you do is just flip it over to level 2. It still gets rid of it, but it's now level 2 effectively. Because you had a level 1 there before, but now it's a level 2. The next thing you're going to see is a slightly different card, which is a little bit different from all your summoning cards, which are flare cards. And pretty much these they're effectively catch-up mechanics. So if one of the players are doing a little bit worse than the other on the board itself, because it doesn't actually factor in actual victory points, you might be winning, but if your board position is a little bit weaker, then these tend to assist you in coming back up. You'll see a symbol that looks like the common symbol, and what the bottom one is representing is that your opponent has 4 more pieces than you do, and that can be upgraded to lower rank or whatever, as long as they have more than 4 pieces than you. So let's say we're going to have level 3, level 1. So right now I have 1 level 1, 1 level 2. They currently have 2 level 3s, 2 level 2s, 3 level 1s. So they do have 7 pieces on their side, and I have 2 on mine. And these could be placed anywhere, but I just kind of threw them on the board. And so we know that we at least get the bottom one here, because they at least have 4 more pieces than we do, which will then give me a particular benefit. I can place 1 common piece of my color on any empty space. So what a common piece is a level 1. I can throw a level 1 piece anywhere that I want to. This may help me set up for one of my abilities here, because let's say if I throw it here, I could then now use the messenger to then destroy him and throw a piece there if I wanted to. So it does kind of help me set up specific instances like that. Let's say, however, so I do have my 4 common. Right now, the top one is going to represent how many upgraded pieces do they have that is more than yours. Right now they have 4 upgraded pieces because that'll count level 2s and level 3s. I have 1. So this does not apply currently. But let's say if I had, so they now have 4 upgraded pieces, I have 0. So in that case, this one requires 4 upgraded pieces for this also to apply. You can get both of these. You'll usually resolve the top one first, bottom one second. In this case it says place 1 common piece of your color on any empty square. So it actually does the same thing for both of them, but I would actually get both of them if I did this. So, and there's a couple different things we could do here, because if I use both of these, I could drop both of those. And these don't actually count towards your 2 actions. These are actually free things that you get for doing worse than your opponent currently on the board. So because I started out with 2 pieces this round, and he has a bunch more stuff than I do, it did give me 2 free pieces before I would actually do my turn. Which in this particular scenario, that actually helped set me up for my assassin, because now I could very easily just summon my assassin, which would kill him. And then normally whenever you get your assassin here, that it'll actually move backwards, as long as the space is empty, which is just part of the text of the assassin card. And that would be like my first action, because I summoned, even though I put these two down here, it was due to the flare card. And then I would still get one more action afterwards. So as you can see, the board presence changed a lot just due to one of those flare cards, which do help out enormously. Like in the case of this other card, you can do one standard move with one of your common pieces, or upgrade one of your common pieces. So with this card, let's say if it applied, I can upgrade one of my common pieces to an upgraded piece. And I can also do one standard move, which is just move it to another place, one square away. If they had 6 more pieces than I do, which is quite a few pieces, you get to place 2 of your level 1s of your color on empty spaces. So that gives me 2 additional pieces, which again is really good. But on the flip side of that, if they have 6 more pieces than you, they're already doing pretty well on the board as is. So and that's how the flare cards work, is that if you're starting to do kind of badly, it kind of gives you that little extra bump to hopefully make you do a little bit better, and so that way you can kind of keep the game interesting. Because in one turn, just due to the flare card and my moves for the round, even though I still have 1 reaction left, I've already kind of evened out the battlefield a little bit. Now they still have their 2 level 3s, 2 level 2s, 2 level 1s, so they're at 6, but now I'm at 5. So I went from 2 to 5, and then they went from 7 down to 6. So it's not a huge loss for them, but it is something that you're slowly getting ground on. But let's say if the tide starts to turn and I start to destroy a bunch of their stuff, they're going to be able to use flare cards back to kind of give themselves a little bit of a hold again. So that's how the flare cards, summon cards work. Now, knowing all that, we can kind of go a little more in depth on these goal cards, because these are pretty much the primary goal of the game. As long as you're playing high formats, so there are different ways of playing the game. You can do Deathmatch, which at that point you're just killing each other's pieces. Whoever ends up getting the most kills point-wise will give you the victory as far as that goes. But on this particular one, you have like isolation. An enemy piece is within 2 squares of another enemy piece, but it cannot get adjacent to any enemy piece in 3 or fewer moves through empty squares. So what that pretty much means here, let's say the board looks something like this. It's saying that 2 of your enemy's pieces are within 2 spaces of each other, but they cannot get to each other within 3 moves. So it'll probably be more like, yeah, more like that. So right now it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get to them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right now they are within 2 spaces of each other, but they cannot get to each other within 3 spaces, because you can't move over another piece. And that's how you would accomplish isolation. With Green Legends, you need to have a level 3 and a level 2 on at least 2 of these green spaces. If you qualify for that, you'll be able to take that at the end of the round. And then diagonals, you're just trying to get a diagonal from one corner to the other, and then the other corner to the other corner. This one, I mentioned it earlier. You need to have 5 pieces in the center area, 2 of which have to be upgraded. So like, in order to get that one, it doesn't exactly matter the order, as long as you have 5 pieces in the center, at least 2 of which are upgraded. If you did that, it's a little bit easier to accomplish, but if you get that, you would get those. The 3 that are on the bottom here are the current objectives. the top one here is just to kind of plan for, since you know that this one's going to be coming down once someone achieves one of these three, it would be good to kind of start putting pieces here if you don't have anything better to do. But like, let's say your opponent got the green legends here and had the 2 green objectives, this one's going to go down there at the end of the round, which means that if you already kind of planned for this one, you can go ahead and finish it up and then complete that particular goal. And that's, for the most part, the majority of the game. As far as Deathmatch goes, the Deathmatch is, you have to kill 2 level 1 pieces for a victory point. If you killed a single level 2, you get a victory point. And if you kill a legendary piece, you get 2 victory points. So the goal of the game is basically to kill as many pieces as you can. And as I said, for every 2 commons you get 1 victory point. For every 1 level 2, you get 1 victory point. Every level 3 is 2 victory points. Now in your base game, what I explained a minute ago, the game ends whenever someone runs out of their deck here, or if they hit 9 victory points, as compared to Deathmatch, where it becomes 18 victory points. So once someone achieves 18 victory points or the deck runs out, then the last round will occur. And so once you get to the last round, basically you'll just play out your hand, your opponent then plays out their hand, and then the game will end. And the 9 victory points will be off for the goals for the base game. And then for every one of these level 3s you have on the table itself, they're worth a victory point as well. So for example, if you have 3 of these legendaries out, those were 3 victory points, and then if you get 6 more points off of these cards, then you're going to initiate the last round. Whereas Deathmatch, again, it's when you hit 18 or when the deck runs out. So you're going to be doing a lot more killing stuff. But generally it's a little bit easier to get points in Deathmatch, and there's a little bit more going on with that as well. So that is the game of Tash Kalar. As I said, it's a very different, and some of the mechanics are a little bit strange, but it is a neat way that they kind of introduce all of it together. And as I mentioned, as you play cards, then you replace them. So it does keep a nice little flow to the game. And then as you burn cards, it'll get closer to the end of the game itself. I do hope you've enjoyed watching the video. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, I do have a lot more of these how to play videos. Definitely watch for those if you've enjoyed this one. And we should have another video posted next week. Thank you for watching Rundlii Gaming. You have a good day.